Personal log, Lieutenant Alex Craig, Stardate 41153.3. This is log 2, first impressions. I kept my word and found Sickbay. It was quieter than I expected. Not empty, but ordered in a way that didn't require attention unless something needed it. Beverly was already at work, moving between stations with an ease that made it feel like she'd always been there, even though I knew she hadn't. She glanced up as I came in. "You didn't disappear." "Temporarily delayed. That's not better. It is from my perspective." There was the faintest trace of amusement before she turned back towards the console. "Good. You can help." "With what?" She gestured toward another figure standing across from her, reviewing a display with precise, economical movements. "Alex, this is Dr. Solar." Solar looked up just enough to acknowledge me. "Lieutenant?" "Doctor?" Her attention returned immediately to the readings. The patient's scans are stable. There is no indication of irregularity. Beverly leans lightly against the nearby console. "And yet he insists something feels off." "Subjective reports are not always reliable," Solar said. "They're not always wrong either." Solar adjusted the display slightly. "There is still no measurable deviation." Beverly glanced toward me. "What do you think?" "About what?" "The readings." I stepped closer, reluctantly, looking over the display. Nothing obvious stood out to me. "I mean, I don't really know enough to say." "A prudent answer," Solar said without looking up. Beverly ignored that. "Try anyway." I studied the display another moment. The scans looked stable now. I said carefully, "But if something changed briefly and then settled again, maybe you wouldn't see the change itself, just where it ended up." That got Solar's attention. She looked over at me directly for the first time. "You were suggesting an event that left no lasting trace." "Maybe not the kind you're looking for." Beverly folded her arms, already thinking through it. "We should monitor fluctuation patterns, not just baseline position." Solar considered that for a moment, then adjusted the scan parameters without comment. After a few seconds, Beverly leaned slightly closer to me. "I like her," she said quietly. "She's not what you would expect." "I'm noticing that." Solar glanced up from the console. "I am aware you are discussing me." Beverly didn't miss a beat. "Good, then you know it's positive." "That remains to be determined." There was something underneath the delivery. Not humor exactly, but not the absence of it either. Beverly straightened slightly. "Alex, before you disappear again." "I wasn't disappearing. You were thinking about it." That was probably fair. She hesitated just slightly. "I mentioned you to the captain." I looked at her. "Why?" "I thought you might notice something the rest of us wouldn't." "I'm not sure that's true." "We'll find out." She stepped away from the console. "There's a senior staff conference about what happened at Farpoint." "Q," I said. "You've heard about it?" "Only the outline." Beverly studied me a moment. "I told the captain you might have a perspective worth hearing." I don't even know what I think about it yet." "You don't have to." That surprised me slightly. She gave a small nod toward the corridor. "Come with me." The room was already partially filled when we entered. Jean-Luc Picard stood near the far end of the table reviewing something on the central display. William Riker and Geordie LaForge were speaking quietly nearby. Tasha Yar stood slightly apart from the others, posture steady and watchful. And near the side of the room, Deanna Troi observed everything with a kind of stillness that felt different from everyone else's attention. Beverly stepped forward. "Captain." Picard turned. His eyes moved to her, then to me. "Lieutenant Craig," he said, "Dr. Crusher tells me you may have an interesting perspective." "I hope not to waste everyone's time." There was the slightest shift in Picard's expression. Not amusement exactly, recognition maybe. "We'll determine that together." He turned back toward the display. We were reviewing the entity's behavior during first contact. The room settled again. Riker spoke first, outlining the encounter, the appearance, the accusations. His tone stayed controlled, though there was still tension underneath it. He placed us on trial, Yar said, without justification. From our perspective, Picard replied. Troy spoke then, quieter than the others. He didn't feel uncertain. Whatever he was doing, he believed in it completely. That doesn't make it valid, Yar said. No, Troy agreed, but it does make it consistent. A brief silence settled over the room. Then Picard looked towards me. Lieutenant? I hadn't intended to say anything, but everyone was waiting. What if it wasn't a trial? I said. Riker looked at me. He called it one. Yes, I said, but he also controlled the terms, the outcome, the environment. It didn't really behave like something trying to determine anything. Picard's attention sharpened slightly. Go on. I hesitated for a second before continuing. If you already know the outcome, you don't hold a trial to discover it. Maybe you do it to make someone else see it. To whom? Yar asked. I gave a small shrug. That part I'm less sure about. The room went quiet again. Not disagreement, not agreement either. Just space. Picard studied the display thoughtfully. An entity that demonstrates rather than evaluates. That's one possibility. Riker leaned back slightly. That's not especially reassuring. No, I admitted. It isn't. Troy looked at me then, more directly than before. Not evaluating. Just listening. Picard nodded once, as though setting the idea aside without dismissing it. Noted. The discussion moved on after that. Other theories, other interpretations. The structure of the meeting stayed intact, but the tone had shifted slightly. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. When the meeting ended, people dispersed in smaller conversations across the room. Beverly glanced toward me. You didn't embarrass me. That's encouraging. I didn't say you were right. I know. That earned the faintest smile. Good. I stepped back out into the corridor alone this time. The ship felt the same as it had earlier, but not entirely. Not because anything had changed, just because I'd seen something I hadn't before. Q. I still didn't know what he was, but for the first time, I felt less urgency to decide. That seemed important somehow. I kept walking, quietly curious what he might do next.